Hello everyone, my name is Ada and welcome to Leafcutter Lessons. Today's video is a video I initially had on bovine terror, but I'm moving it here because it makes way more sense to have on this channel. I also made quite a few updates to polish it up and make it nicer to watch, so please enjoy this new and improved video. Today we are at the Albuquerque Biopark Zoo. Today we're going to be looking at 5 really cool semi-aquatic reptiles that are all found in North America and right here in this zoo.
So the first species of reptile that we're going to be looking at today is the American alligator.
So American alligators are one of the only crocodilian species in the world that are not endangered anymore, which is really cool. There's not a lot of them that are in good standing right now, but it's cool because the American alligator is one of them. They are also only one of 2 living alligator species alive today, those 2 being the American alligator and the Chinese alligator. And the Chinese alligator looks a lot like American alligators, it's just a lot smaller, and they have different behaviors as the American alligators. So these guys only live in the southeastern United States. These are strictly freshwater animals, and they do not live in saltwater at all, unlike a few other crocodilian species. Their diet mainly consists of, well, pretty much any living animal that they can eat. They'll eat aquatic animals like amphibians, they'll eat reptiles, they'll eat fish, and they'll also eat terrestrial animals. So what they'll do is they'll sit under the water and wait for an animal to come down and take a drink. And once the animal is taking a drink and isn't really paying attention, they will leap out of the water, grab onto the animal, and pull it into the water. Crocodilians have been enormously successful throughout prehistoric time. They've been around here for millions of years. They were around when the dinosaurs were here. They ate dinosaurs. They grew to enormous lengths. There were crocodilians that were 50 feet long. Through all those millions and millions of years, they survived, and there are still crocodilians today, and they're largely unchanged, at least in structure. American alligators are interesting because their social structure is kind of strange for crocodilians. Most of their species are pretty solitary animals. They will tolerate having other crocodiles in their territory, usually during a mating season or something like that, but there are some crocodilians, like American alligators and Nile crocodiles, where they're okay hanging out together in really big groups. And that's why in this enclosure there's a whole bunch of them all together, is because they're happy to do that. Not all crocodilians are like that. In fact, most of them aren't like that. Most of them are very territorial, and they'll kill, well, not usually kill, but they will attack and try to drive off other crocodilians out of their territory, and sometimes they will kill them to do so. So yeah, American alligators are kind of neat in that regard.
Alright, so next up on our list of animals to look at is the green basilisk lizard. The basilisk is indigenous to Central America, and it was named the basilisk because the locals there have a mythical snake-like dragon creature that they believe that the basilisk resembles. And the local belief in the area is that the basilisk is so venomous that even looking at it can kill you, which is interesting because basilisks are not venomous at all. They are completely harmless to people. But kind of an interesting story that came about from that. So the basilisks are actually omnivorous lizards, so they'll eat vegetation, they'll eat fruits, and they will also eat insects or small vertebrates like other lizards or amphibians or mammals or something like that. What makes basilisks really cool is an escape mechanism they have is that they can just run on water, which is why they have a nickname called the Jesus Christ lizard. Basilisks will actually get up on their hind legs and they can run along the surface of the water. The way that they do this is that they have very, very large back feet with really long toes that have flaps of skin that come out when they need them to, and it creates a very large surface to step on the water. They slap the water really hard with their back feet when they run. They create an air pocket that sits between their foot and the water, and it gives them a little bit of a surface to stand on, and they move fast enough and they're light enough that they can do this and still remain on the surface of the water without sinking. On the flip side though, even if this doesn't work, they're actually really, really good swimmers, and they can actually hold their breath for up to 30 minutes. And thankfully, these guys are of least concern. So these guys are totally good to go. They're actually doing really well, which is really cool because they're really cool little lizards. And glad they're still around, they're still doing well. Alright, so next up is the alligator snapping turtle, and just look how huge she is. I mean, she's just massive. I mean, she's just huge. It's so cool. It's just so cool. And the really weird thing is about these guys is that this is probably the biggest alligator snapping turtle I've ever seen, the biggest snapping turtle just in general. But there was a report in the 1900s in Kansas, and they claim to have found an alligator snapping turtle that was 403 pounds. This girl right here, I mean, even how big she is probably around like 200, 250 pounds. So she's still really, really big, but I mean, can you imagine a turtle twice her size? I mean, that's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So, the alligator snapping turtle gets its name from these ridges that you can see on her back. That's the alligator part. So they look a lot like the alligators that we saw earlier. And so that's why they're called alligator snapping turtles. And then the snapping turtle part is, well, this mouth. I mean, it's huge. It's a really kind of scary looking thing. But essentially what it is that, and you might be able to see inside, but what they do is they sit really, really still like this. You know, just completely unmoving in the water with their mouths open. And inside their mouth, their tongue resembles a worm. That tongue will look like a worm and it acts as a lure. And so fish will see that tongue moving around, think it's a worm, go in to try to eat it, and when they go inside of its mouth, then it just snaps its mouth shut really quickly and traps the fish inside and eats it. Or doesn't have to quite be a fish. They are not very picky and they'll pretty much eat any living thing that they can actually get into their mouth and swallow. And to top it all off, their mouths are extraordinarily strong. I mean, that jaw can bite down with an immense amount of bite force. I don't know the exact numbers, but, oh, did I startle you? I didn't mean to do that, I apologize. She seems a little uncomfortable with me being this close. I'm gonna just back off just a little bit. I don't want to startle her. I'll still keep her in the picture, but essentially, that bite force is just enormously powerful. It's easily capable of just snapping bones, even something as thick as my arm. Like, it would be a little difficult, but she could do it. I mean, they're really, really powerful animals. They're really, really impressive. They primarily live in the southeastern United States. So areas like Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, areas like that. They're freshwater animals, so they'll be found in lakes and rivers and things like that. The really cool thing about these turtles is that we don't actually know how long they live. Usually in captivity they live somewhere around 50 to 70 years, but we have estimates in the wild that they can live somewhere around 90 to 120 years, and even some really high estimates think that they could live for up to 200 years. The oldest living animal that we know about came from the Galapagos, and it was a tortoise that was housed in Australia Zoo for a while, and it was actually brought over by Charles Darwin when he first explored the Galapagos. So that turtle lived to be 168 years old. And these guys might actually be able to live longer than that, which is really cool. And also, I should say, that tortoise that was brought over lived for 168 years that we recorded. It wasn't a baby when they got it, so it probably lived for longer than that. We just don't know how much longer. These guys can live for a really long time, which is just really, really cool. So these guys are listed as a threatened species right now. The threats that they have are from people trying to collect them for meat, trying to collect them for the pet trade, which don't have this as a pet. I mean, if you're really, really experienced with turtles, then maybe, but she's so big. She's huge. I mean, what do you do with her? I mean, that'd be so difficult to take care of. So, but yeah, people collect them for the pet trade because when they're little, they're a lot easier to handle. Just when they get big, it's not so easy. Habitat loss is another problem that they experience. So they're threatened right now in the United States, and in some specific states they are listed as endangered. But there are conservation efforts going out to try to help these guys, especially habitat restoration and laws hammering down on the pet trade because you don't want this as a pet. It's just really, really bad idea to have as a pet. So, yeah, things you can do to try to help out is don't get these guys as pets by any means. Do not get these guys as pets, and don't eat meat from alligator snapping turtles because they're threatened, and we don't want to keep eating them and possibly kill them. So just eat something else. Lastly is the cottonmouth or water moccasin. Both names have kind of interesting meanings for why they call it that. It's called cottonmouth because the inside of its mouth, it's not going to open its mouth, and I don't want it to because that means that it's afraid. But the inside of its mouth is really, really white, and that's why it's called cottonmouth, which I think is really cool. It's really cool to see them. I've actually gotten to see them in Texas a few times, and they're really, really cool looking. And then the name water moccasin is because these snakes are semi-aquatic, and in fact, they're the only semi-aquatic viper in the world. They're really, really phenomenal swimmers. I have seen them swim in person, and they're really, really good at it. That's why they're called water moccasins. And the moccasin part is because people used to use their skins to make shoes, moccasins out of them. So that's why they're called water moccasins. So these guys are venomous. All vipers are venomous, so since this guy's the only semi-aquatic viper, he is going to be venomous. They're often known to be aggressive snakes. To be honest, this aggression is a little over-exaggerated. They are more aggressive than your average snake in North America, but then again in North America we don't have very many aggressive snakes. So the aggressiveness of the snake is basically that if you disturb them, which again, they're not going to come up and attack you, it's only if you disturb them, because I've seen water moccasins and the vast majority of the time they just run away. So what these guys will do is that if they're disturbed, they will strike and they'll hiss and they'll actually kind of move toward you to try to intimidate you to leave. They're not going to chase you though, they're just going to move toward you to try to say like, I'm not afraid of you, I'm going to scare you away, even though they are afraid, and that's why they're doing it. But that's kind of why they're known as being aggressive, is because they are more aggressive than the average snake in the US, but they're not that aggressive in general. So they live in the southeastern United States, just like the alligator snapping turtle, and they actually have pretty similar ranges in general. Being semi-aquatic, their diets consist of fish, amphibians, other aquatic vertebrates or semi-aquatic vertebrates, and even other aquatic snakes, like the Texas water snake, things like that. They'll actually go and eat other snakes like that. And so these guys are at least concerned, which is really cool because they're doing well. However, they do get killed and hunted a lot just because a lot of people still don't really like venomous snakes. Hopefully they'll watch the video that I put out about venomous snakes in North America. These guys are just really cool. They're just really, really beautiful snakes. They're really, really cool mouths. And yeah, they're just really cool snakes. So hopefully people stop killing them. But on the bright side, they're not in danger of going extinct. So that's cool.
Today we've looked at 5 amazing semi-aquatic reptiles from North America. Many of these animals may seem scary or gross at first, but I hope today I've at least let you learn a little bit about these animals that will encourage you to go out and experience them for yourselves to decide how you feel about them. It is true that these animals can be dangerous, but the beautiful thing about these reptiles is that none of them will hurt you as long as you are careful around them. Anyone can have fulfilling and safe encounters with these amazing animals, as long as you give them space to live their lives the way they want to live. None of them are interested in hurting us, so as long as you respect their personal space, they'll respect yours too. And then you'll get to watch them and hopefully gain some really cool experiences. Or just go to a zoo, like I did. It's by far the safest way to watch and learn about any kind of animal, and it may even allow you to see animals you might never see in the wild. So go out and have a great wildlife experience. I do hope you learned something new today, and if you want to hear more about the natural world, both now and in the past, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to add a little nature in your lives. And cut.